I'm Billy Hollowell, and welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we bring you interviews with pastors, actors, entertainers, and other notable news figures. On today's show, we're going to be getting into some fascinating topics, but before we do, if you are not subscribing to Newsmakers, make sure you head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe right now. Give us a rating. We love 5-star reviews. This is a show where you're going to dive deep into important issues with amazing people. With no further ado, here is today's show. On today's Newsmakers, detransitioner Ollie London joins the show to talk about his transformation, why he speaks out on gender issues, and much more. Here is Ollie London. Well, Ollie, we've got a lot to discuss today. It has been 2 years since you detransitioned, and you came on maybe about a year or two ago and told your story. Really powerful story. We're going to get into all of the details of that, but I want to start with what life has been like in these last 2 years for you.
You know, life has changed very dramatically. You know, I wake up every day with a sense of purpose, a sense of duty. You know, I feel a lot happier every single day. You know, having a newfound faith and exploring that, you know, is a very exciting thing. You know, I wasn't too familiar with Christianity before. I was raised as a teenager atheist. So to be able to explore something completely new and something so fascinating has been absolutely incredible. And, you know, I've been going to a lot of Christian events, been going to churches, connecting with people in the Christian community and elsewhere. And, you know, it gives you a purpose. And I've been, you know, tremendously happy since then. And, you know, since obviously I detransitioned, I've also been trying to use my platform now to try and do good in the world, you know, and try to spread faith as well to the Generation Z audience.
Yeah, well, and your faith journey, obviously every part of your journey is very interesting. Being a detransitioner, which a lot of people don't even fully understand what that means, and we'll get into that. They don't maybe know the ins and the outs of it. You've got a crazy backstory, but the faith part of it is really interesting to me. You know, I remember last time we talked, you said that, becoming a Christian, meeting other Christians, it was amazing that they treated you really well. You were warmly received. Just talk a little bit about, I'm sure there are ups and downs and difficult moments, but coming into faith, how has it shifted your perspective on really every issue under the sun?
Well, you know, firstly, it makes you realize, you know, the important things in life. So, for instance, in Galatians, it says you are judged by your faith, not by your works. So, you know, I think that's a message that I take personally, and many people can take personally, is like if we devote ourselves to faith, to following the teachings of Jesus, to doing good in the world, and to trying to also better ourselves, you know, becoming a better person, trying to understand people that may have differences, trying to educate people about, you know, bringing communities together, whether that's Christian communities, Jewish communities, or else what, and, you know, supporting other people and having an understanding. So, you know, for me, I think it's been a very powerful thing. And, you know, for any Christian, you know, I think it's important to welcome new people as well, because there's a lot of young people that are being led astray these days. They are not connecting with God. You know, God is being taken out of the classrooms in some places. And, you know, I think it's something that the young generation is missing. And for me, when I found faith in God, it gives you that happiness, it gives you the purpose. And I think, you know, that is the most important thing in life. It's not material possessions, it's not other things. It's literally having that, you know, renewed sense of purpose and wanting to help others.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And let's have a candid conversation too, because you went from believing that you were born in the wrong body, believing that you were a female, you had surgeries, you went through a lot of steps in that before, coming to this realization, detransitioning. Has that part been hard? Once you go through the detransition process and now at this 2-year anniversary, have there been moments of wanting to go back? Have there been struggles? What has it been like emotionally as you journey through from point A to where you are now?
Well, you know, when you actually start out, it's very difficult because there's not really information out there to help people that detransition. You know, there's so many resources, NGOs, charities that are helping people transition, you know, getting them the hormones, getting them whatever, puberty blockers. But, you know, if you detransition, you're kind of vilified and, you know, cast aside, and there's no real resources out there. But I think what I've noticed in the last few years, there's been a lot of people that have detransitioned and they've actually been very public with their stories. Chloe Cole is a great example, Luca Hine as well. Connecting with these people, I've met many in real life, spoken online, and just knowing that there's other people out there is very, very helpful. And also trying to encourage other people to speak out, because there's no manual out there that tells you how to get through this process. So for me, the Bible was a helpful thing to help me feel better about myself, to find that inner confidence, that inner love. But there's no manual that says this is how you detransition. And since then I've really changed my life of no more makeup, no more none of that. Just embracing my natural self and not caring about appearances anymore, not caring about identity. It doesn't cross my mind anymore that, oh, I never question it. Oh, should I go back to that? Or do I want to change myself? I'm just content, because at the end of the day, we're made in God's image. And that's been the powerful thing for me. And there's quite a few detransitioners that have had faith help them turn their life around, because again, there's not much support out there, but the Christian community is incredibly loving, incredibly embracing, and they just want to help people, especially when we know, and I'm sure the audience knows, people that go through this transition process. Many of them are very, very much suffering inside. There's a lot of struggles, a lot of vulnerabilities. So it's about trying to help these people and using my experience, other detransitioners using their experience to try and help other people realize it's okay to, become yourself again. It's okay to find yourself and find self-love.
Yeah, and I want to get into some of the finer details of your story and how you got where you were. But before I do, you mentioned a couple of things there. I know there are some churches, there's at least one in Virginia that's creating a ministry to try to help families that are dealing with this, right? Some Christians even, they're dealing with it with their kids and they don't really know how to do it. And, they want to make sure that they're helping come alongside these people. And that just reminds me, you were making headlines well before you detransitioned. You have been out there for a long time. I think your initial transition and some of the other things out there that made headlines. Talk a little bit about the media's reaction, because I'd be very curious, the media's reaction to you transitioning versus the detransitioning part, because it feels like the detransitioners are vastly ignored by a lot of media outlets, whereas transitions are often uplifted, they're often supported in the media.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're a public person, like an influencer like Dylan Mulvaney, and then you transition, the mainstream media eat it up. They want to promote that as, let's embrace this, let's praise these people, and, let's reinforce these behaviors and these identity issues. So I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's healthy for the mainstream media to be feeding that narrative that's encouraging, young kids to want to change themselves. Instead, we should be having stories in the media that are actually about people, whether that's finding faith or whether that's people learning to love themselves, embrace themselves for who they are. And, I think the media is very much biased in this sense. They're willing to push this agenda, but the moment somebody steps away from their agenda or detransitions, quite often liberal media outlets will vilify these people, or try to downplay the number of detransitioners, try to downplay that this is, a very small percentage, less than 1%. They like to downplay that with the statistics that are, of course, backed up by studies done by hospitals that perform these surgeries. So they're in themselves biased. But, for me and for other detransitioners that have spoken publicly, there is a lot of people that agree. I think generally most people these days do have a common sense approach. Nobody's out there judging people for their life decisions. People are more willing to embrace people that want to change their lives, want to transform their lives for the better. And, I think certainly, obviously, I've done CBN before, and, there are many other great networks out there that are helping give these people a voice. And I think it's important to give the voices to the parents, to, the detransitioners themselves, to professors in this speaking up about these issues, and trying to come to a consensus that, okay, we shouldn't be pushing this on people, not just kids, also adults. There's a lot of vulnerable people out there that are struggling with self-esteem, they're struggling with depression, anxiety, and they are being sold a dream that by the media that they should change, that they will be more successful, they will be more happy if they go through a gender transition. And that's mis-selling a dream to these vulnerable people. So the media does have a bias in that sense.
Yeah, and talking about your story, right? I wanna talk about what got you to feel the way you did, what led you on that path. I don't know if you want to share this. I feel like you have shared it before, but a roundabout figure. I mean, how much time and money do you think you had spent trying to transition genders?
Well, I underwent a lot of surgeries over a period of 10 years. I was going through an identity crisis. So I did spend several hundred thousands on the surgeries, the looks, the clothes, all the fillers, the makeup, everything like that. And, it is something I regret. But at the end of the day, I think whatever we go through in life, it is a lesson. So you can't dwell on these regrets. You can't dwell on the past. So, while I do now think, gosh, I wish I didn't do that, I also look at the positive. I always now try to look at the positive since becoming Christian. Think, you know what? I have been through this process. It was tough at the time, but now I'm 10 times more happy. I'm much more content. I would have never felt this way about myself if I hadn't gone through these internal battles. And also, I think the important thing I've learned is to, use this experience to try and help other people. Because, even if I can save one kid, even if I can help one young adult that is going through these struggles, that for me is so satisfying. And that is again the message of Jesus, to try and help other people, to try and spread good in the world. And when you see somebody struggling, like the leper in the Bible, you don't just ignore them, you don't just walk aside, you actually go in and help these people. So for
Yeah.
me, that is something that I think, while I do regret what I did, I feel that I went for it for a reason.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I asked you that question about the amount of money and time is because I want people to understand the desperation that people feel and the level to which, because I think when people aren't going through something, it's really hard to understand, well, why would he go and do this? Why would this person do that? But when you're willing to go that far with it, it's because there's something internal going on. It's a real crisis that people are feeling and struggling through. And I think it helps to sort of frame that. And it brings me to this question of, you were in a place where you were feeling this, you went on this journey. When you look at what's going on in the medical community, there was just a report that one study on this issue was sort of held back and not released because it didn't have results that were favorable to the transgender community. And that study apparently found that transitioning younger people didn't actually help their mental health. But one of the big things that has really been used to sell this has been, look, if you're a parent and you have kids who are struggling with this, you're going to save your kid's life. They might commit suicide. If you help transition them, you'll be saving them. Did you experience those sorts of claims from people as you were going through this journey? I'd be interested to sort of hear.
Well, I can't speak obviously for every single person that goes through these gender identity struggles, but for me personally, and for many of these people, they are in a very dark headspace in the sense that they are extremely depressed. They're judging themselves every day. They're not happy. I mean, the fact that you're willing to chop off body parts and change yourself beyond repair is, very much indicative of the fact that you're struggling mentally with something very difficult. And we should sympathize with these people, and we should try to guide them and try to help them through this. But for me, it's like you're cutting off these body parts, because you deep down you hate yourself. Or some people, not myself, but some people have been through abuse. Some people have had severe autism, and they're being misdiagnosed. And there are, of course, the trans lobby has a lot of money, a lot of power. They do try to suppress any study. Like you mentioned recently, a doctor was trying to hide the results of a study that didn't support their narrative. We're seeing many studies. There was one in the UK called the CAS report, which exposed that puberty blockers were irreversible and harmful. There was a study in Denmark as well, Norway, Finland. So there are studies out there, but the LGBT trans lobby is trying to suppress these because it doesn't fit the narrative. And, I wasn't told by a doctor, if you don't do this, you may end up taking your life. But many parents are being told this by doctors and therapists. And it's really, I think it's a very cruel thing to do to a parent, to try and, look, we know that the kid is struggling with something, but you should be helping them with their other issues, whether they've got undiagnosed autism or Asperger's, whether they are suffering from bullying or depression. These are the root causes for many cases. And, therapists and doctors have a duty to help this young person and to help the parents through this, because, look, the parents want the best for their kid. And, it's a very evil agenda, but there are a lot of parents that generally think they're doing the best for their kid. They're being told by a medical professional, and they trust that person. They've seen their kid going through something very difficult, and They just want their kid to be happy. So there is a guilt tripping process there, that you will be happier if you go through these changes. And parents are being very cruelly told that, if you don't do this, your kid may take their own life. I mean, for any parent, that is the worst nightmare scenario. So that is how they get a lot of parents to consent to these irreversible surgeries and hormones. And it's a very, very cruel process.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what you just said is so important to understand that a lot of these parents think they're doing the right thing. I think we often don't understand people's motives. We assume it's always this motive that's horrific and awful. Yet, of course, we still have to address the issues and speak out about this, but understanding why parents might go along with what a medical professional is saying, it's important to understand that so we can have the proper empathy. In your story, I mean, you were spending all this money and this time doing these surgeries again and again. Was there anybody in the medical community who said to you, hey, Ollie, maybe this isn't the right thing, or hey, maybe you should refrain, or hey, there's another way? Did you encounter people who tried to stop you along the way or help in any other way?
No one. In fact, many of the doctors and other people actually encourage it. They say, oh, well, the reason you're feeling like this is because you're trapped in the wrong body. Maybe it's because, you're female, you're meant to be a woman. No, so they would actually, on the contrary, encourage it, rather than trying to help. And again, that's the case with many, many people. They may go to a therapist, a psychologist, or a doctor, but they are actually being encouraged and often rewarded for changing themselves or behavior, whether that's reinforcing them with positive words or praising them and encouraging them to do it. I think it's, for me personally and for many people, they are pushed into this when maybe there is another path for these people. Maybe they could have been helped in a different way. Maybe they could have been discouraged and say, you know what, you might be feeling right like this right now, but give it a few years, you're going to be feeling better. Why not join your local church? Why not go to a community center and dedicate your time and energy to something else? Because I think many trans people, all they think about all day from the moment they wake up to the moment they sleep is being trans. That is the number one thing that consumes them. And it's almost like an opioid addiction, because it completely consumes the person. That's all they're focused on. All they're thinking about is, okay, how can I get the hormones? How can I get the next surgery? What can I do next to change? And that's all that's on their mind. That was my case as well. And it's very, very sad, and it should be treated like an opioid addiction would be treated. As this person is struggling with something, we shouldn't be encouraging it. We shouldn't be providing them with the, let's say, so to speak, metaphorically, opioids. You shouldn't be giving them this encouragement. You should actually be helping them get out of that headspace.
What was your epiphany moment for you, right? Because obviously anybody who decides to detransition, you have to come to that position. What was it for you that made you finally say, okay, this is it, I need to change back?
Well, I just wasn't happy. And, I was reflecting for many, many months about, do I continue down this path? Do I continue getting more and more surgeries? And at the end of the day, it was only giving me a temporary happiness for a couple of months every time I would do something. And I was thinking, can I live my life, the rest of my life like this, being unhappy and pretending to be happy, putting on a smile, putting on the makeup, pretending to be happy? Or can I actually take a step back and think, how can I change this mentality? How can I fix my thinking? And it's a very difficult thing. Again, going back to the link like addiction, it's a very difficult thing to get out of that headspace and to be strong and to say, you know what, I need to make some changes in my life. Very, very tough. But again, that's where going to church and Christianity came into my life, because that was the stepping stone for me to feel encouraged to change. That was the stepping stone that helped me feel some strength that I can actually do this. Because before I was thinking, I can't get out of this now. I'm trans. I'm trapped like this now. I better continue to be happy. So that for me was a big, big stepping stone, and giving me the internal strength to say, you know what, I need to take a step back and find that inner happiness.
As we are at this 2-year anniversary of your detransition, what are you most thankful for to God? What are you most thankful for in life as you just reflect on that journey, that 2-year journey? It has not been easy, but here you are able to talk about it and help others.
Well, yeah, the thing I'm most grateful for is learning a life lesson. Going through these struggles, while difficult as it was, is helped me be a lot happier. I dedicate my time now to try and raising awareness of issues in the world. I visited Israel. I've during the war, I've tried to help other communities and help educate people about what's going on in the world and trying to do good, doing a lot of charity projects for women's rights as well. So that's given me, again, a sense of purpose. And, I do try to encourage my young followers as well. If you're feeling trapped, if you're feeling unhappy, why not just walk into a church? Because I guarantee you that will change your life, because Christians are very kind people. They're non-judgmental. And I think that's what a lot of people trapped in this gender cult feel, is that, oh, Christians are judging us, they're not accepting. But actually, Christians are the most accepting community. They don't judge you for their past. They actually want to try and help you redeem yourself. And, as Galatians says, you're judged through your faith. So I think I would encourage any young person, go step inside the church, and that will change your life. And, open a Bible. If you don't like reading, go watch a YouTube video with, somebody reciting some of the Gospels. Do something like that. Just a small change in your life can give you enough strength to try and turn your life around.
Well, and you have done that. You have turned your life around, and looking forward to having you back again very soon. If people want to connect with you, because you're very active on social media, where's the best place for them to go and do that?
Thank you so much, Billy. So on X, it's Ollie London TV, where I share a lot of issues and news stories going on in the world. And Instagram is London Ollie as well.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Billy. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
That's all for today's Newsmakers. I'm Billy Hollowell. Make sure you head on over and rate this show on your favorite podcast platform. Let your friends and family know to listen as well. We have new episodes Monday through Friday on your favorite podcast platforms. You can also watch the Newsmakers TV show on the CBN News channel. That show airs once a week with 3 incredible interviews with newsmakers. Be sure to head on over and watch that, and also head over for more interviews to the CBN News YouTube channel and cbnnews.com. I'll see you again very soon for another Newsmakers.